Well, hello, friend, and welcome back to the Unfuck Your Biz with Braden podcast. As always, this is your host, Braden. And on today, I want to chat with you about your building blocks to building a profitable business. This is very exciting. You should have, in my intro, heard like a little ad placement for the masterclass I have coming up next week. If you haven't already, I want you to hit pause, go to the URL that I mentioned, and sign up. A lot of the topics we've been talking about in recent weeks are leading up to this masterclass. So we talked about why it's never too early to think about your team, legalities to protect your bank account, why revenue doesn't really matter in your business, why $200,000 is the new six figures. Lots of topics, and a lot of these are leading up to what we're going to talk about on the masterclass. So if you've been enjoying the episodes, make sure that you tune in. So today, again, we're talking about the building blocks that you need to have to build a profitable business. If you listen to the podcast regularly, a lot of these concepts are going to be review for you. You've probably heard about them before, but I find when I listen to other experts that I really admire and respect, they usually got to teach me something about 3 to 5 times before it really starts to sink in. So what are our building blocks? Well, one building block, this is really several building blocks, but we group them all together, is something that I call the layers of protection for your business. So back on episode 197, I talked about legalities to protect your bank account. And this concept that I've recently been getting really into about how we often think about our legalities kind of in a vacuum. Like we get a contract because we know that we need a contract. We get an LLC because someone told us to. We get insurance because another person told us to, right? But at the end of the day, when we think about all these legalities, we're getting them to protect ourselves. And typically when we say protect ourselves, what we really mean is protect our financial interest, right? What's a more appealing topic for us to really think about, learn about, talk about is making money, right? We all like to talk about making money. We like to talk about marketing. We like to talk about really serving our clients and doing the best in whatever our craft is. And we also, maybe you don't like talking about taxes, but I find that's more urgent for people because people are thinking taxes are always top of mind. But we must focus on our legalities also. And it's because all that money that we're trying to make, we're spending our time marketing, we're spending our time delivering excellent services. That's only going to get us so far if we kind of disregard our legal necessities and we have people coming after us, right? We got money in the bank account, but if we have to spend that out in lawsuits, not really doing us very good. So we have to dial in our layers of protection, and our layers of protection are our contracts, our insurance, and our business entities. So I've talked on the podcast before about how these layers are like layers of clothing. They help keep your business warm and protected, but the amount of layers that you need, much like the weather, is very circumstantial. Like if you are someone who's naturally very cold, if you're like a risk averse person, you want to have a lot of layers. If you're not that risk averse, then, I would still probably tell you to have a decent amount of layers, but you might be okay with kind of disregarding a couple of them. That's up to you, right? But you have to contemplate these things and get your layers dialed in. So that's the first set of building blocks to build a profitable business. You have to have your layers of protection dialed in. The next building blocks are our tax systems, right? We need to have solid tax systems to keep the IRS off of our back. If we're constantly sending money out to the IRS, if we're under audit all the time, that's very stressful and it's going to cost us money, right? We think about the money, but oftentimes I think for a lot of us, we're really afraid of the IRS. And it's not really, I mean, it is the money, but it's really the fear and the anxiety that's the issue, right? We don't want to have to deal with them. It's scary. And also, I don't know if you've ever tried to call the IRS, but oftentimes you wait on hold anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half if you're lucky enough to even get in the holding queue. Sometimes they just tell you there's too many people on the line and you have to call back later. Trust me, I've dealt with this. It took me 2-3 weeks to get through to the IRS. Last time I had an issue, I was on the phone for about 2.5 hours. It's a huge time suck. And that's if you're just making one phone call. If you're in an IRS audit, these get drawn out for months and months and months. And my point here is that if we're spending our time dealing with the IRS, with any of these agencies, that's taking away time that we can spend doing more valuable, profitable activities in our business. We don't want that time waster. And again, even more so, we don't want to deal with the stress, anxiety, and lost sleep over dealing with the IRS. So we need good tax systems so that we don't have to deal with all of that shit. We also need to pay what we owe, but not a penny more. This is something I often say. I like to teach people to pay the taxes that they owe. It is our civil duty, right? You may not want to pay them, but I take pride in paying my own taxes. I think about it whenever I'm driving on the highways, but I also don't want to overpay. I don't want to pay more than my fair share. And that means maximizing all of the deductions that I'm entitled to, using all of the tax benefits that were drafted into our tax code by Congress. Like, they're there for a reason. You should use them, but you need to know what the tax benefits are, and you need to know how to utilize them. And developing good tax systems will help you do this. Really, systems and education. You got to get education, and then you have to implement the things that you've learned through good systems. So this is done primarily through income and expense tracking, or bookkeeping in another word, but bookkeeping, record keeping. And it's actually done through business entities as well. So if you're profiting, if you're at a certain profit target, you might be a good candidate to form an S corporation. And an S corporation legally helps you save quite a bit of money in self-employment taxes, depending on your circumstance. So tax systems not only include like bookkeeping, like QuickBooks is what you would probably think of first, but it also includes having the correct business structure. So our business entity has both legal protection considerations. It was one of our layers of protection, but it also is part of our tax systems. Another building block we have to consider, or another set of building blocks, are good financial systems. And good financial systems will often overlap with tax systems. If we have a really good bookkeeping process, like in a program like QuickBooks, it's going to benefit both of these building blocks. But they're primarily there, the financial systems are primarily there to serve your decisions that really impact your personal finances. So our tax systems are just, again, to kind of satisfy the IRS, but our financial systems go above and beyond that. So they help us determine and dial in how much and when we should be paying ourselves. Should we pay ourselves on a weekly basis, bi-weekly basis, monthly basis, quarterly basis? Do we pay ourselves in multiple different ways? Do we pay ourselves a set dollar amount, or is the dollar amount going to fluctuate based on the season? There are a lot of things to consider. I have the methods that I like to teach, and the methods vary slightly depending on your experience in business and also your business structure. So again, are you a sole prop? Are you an LLC? Are you an S Corp? That's going to inform the way that you pay yourself. And ultimately, the way that you pay yourself informs the way that you're able to reach your personal financial goals. And again, the past several weeks, I've talked a lot about why dialing in our business systems is so important to reach our personal financial goals. And if we don't really have personal financial goals, then we're kind of just spinning our wheels in our business. The point of running a business should be to fund our lifestyle and reach, whatever objectives we have in life, no matter how small, how grand, whatever. Having good financial systems also helps you reach target profit margins. We talked a few episodes back about why revenue isn't all that important, right? We don't care about revenue, we care about profit. And if we're not measuring our profit, we don't really know what the benefit is in our business. And again, our benefit really is our take-home pay. If I want to get a nicer apartment, or I want to buy a house, or I want to get a new car, or I want to pay down debt, I need to know how much money I have to do that. And my business revenue does not give me that answer. Only my profit does. And I should have profit targets. And in order to have profit targets, I need good financial systems. I have to know how much I'm making each month. I must know how much I'm spending. I need to know the average of what that margin comes out to. And then I need to have a solid objective on where it is I'm planning to go. So I can set an objective, I can measure it, and I can try to reach closer and closer to it each month. As I'm implementing different tactics to do that. Good financial systems also help you determine your offers, services, and prices. So an offer is what you're extending to your audience. I will give you this package for this amount of money, right? It's the different services you're providing, all these sorts of things. And by having good financial systems, we can look at our records and I can say, oh, you know what? This thing that I actually hate doing is only making me like $1,000 a month. And it takes so much time. Like once we have good financial systems, we can look at that. We can say, you know what? It would kind of hurt if I did away with that $1,000, but with all the time it takes me, if I invested that time into something else, I could probably triple that amount of money. Or maybe I could just offer something I like more, make the same amount of money, but I'm having a more enjoyable time in business, right? Maybe my goal is to keep the same level of revenue and profit, but working fewer hours by offering different services or raising my prices. There's lots of different strings we can pull, but we need to know our numbers in order to get there. So our next set of building blocks is thinking about how we need to turn our business into an asset, right? So these are additional building blocks. We can think about the layers of intellectual property protection. So I haven't talked a lot about this because I don't really provide trademarks. That's a big element to intellectual property protection, but it's also something that we need to consider, right? I teach about the layers of When I talk about the layers of protection, I'm usually referring to what I would actually call the layers of liability protection. And then the layers of intellectual property protection, it's kind of like a different set of layers, right? And these include primarily trademark and copyright. It could also include patents and trade secrets, but not as relevant to our industries. But if we are building a brand, we need to protect that. It needs to become part of our business asset through trademark filings and proper copyright systems. We also, when we think about building our business into an asset, another topic I talked about a few weeks ago, check out that episode, we can get into the conversation of hiring and team building, as well as systems. So these are all building blocks that we need. Now, I hope this just kind of helped get the wheels turning on what you need to think about. This was really a what episode, not necessarily a how-to episode. I've given you a lot of what you need to do, and I'm going to give you more of the how on next week's masterclass. So I'm not going to share all about it right now because I'm going to have an ad spot at the end of this podcast giving you more details on the masterclass. Make sure that you listen to that all the way until this episode fully ends. But that's all on the core content for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, give me a tag on Instagram stories, take a screenshot of your podcast, let me know that you're listening, share it with your friends. One of our big focuses this quarter is to grow the podcast. So if you're loving it and want to share it, I would love that. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I will be back in your podcast app next week. Have a good one.